Has the NFL committed its most egregious act ever? No, not that. No, not that. No, that's still ongoing. Alleged. Fair enough. But in the eyes of many in the NFL media and the sporting world, there was a mix of shock, anger, and intrigue at the latest coach hiring and firing in the NFL. On November 7th, 2022, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, Jim Irsay, announced that Jeff Saturday would be the interim head coach moving forward as the Colts parted ways with Frank Reich. And when I heard this, I had two thoughts. One, I think Frank Reich is a great coach and I wish him all the best and his family. It sucks to hear someone lose their job, but I would put him in the camp of potential coaches that, should he coach again, can do really well with a change of scenery. But my second thought when I heard that Jeff Saturday was going to be the interim head coach for the Indianapolis Colts was to ask, who is Jeff Saturday?
People are overlooked for a variety of biased reasons and perceived flaws.
Saturday's story is an interesting one, something that can be said for both the man and the weekend news. The Colts had apparently tried to hire Saturday as offensive line coach in 2019 and again before the 2022 season began, but were shut down. I know the feeling. And up until recently, and I mean like November 6th recently, he was an analyst at ESPN. So why did the Colts want him out of all these other analysts? He was a 6-time Pro Bowl center who played 14 seasons in the NFL, with 13 of those in Indianapolis. 13 years snapping the ball to none other than Peyton Manning, known for hosting his show Manningcast, among a few other things. His final year in the NFL was with the Green Bay Packers and their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, known for his guest appearances on the Pat McAfee Show, among a few other things. He won a Super Bowl with the Colts in 2007 and was a huge part in defeating the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game, recovering a fumble for a touchdown and later providing the block against Vince Wilfork. But I was surprised to learn when doing my research that Jeff Saturday, despite all this success in the NFL, went undrafted and was working a job as a manager at an electrical supply store in Raleigh, North Carolina. Thanks to some stellar reporting by Tim Layden of Sports Illustrated, as well as some other sources I'll link in the description, according to his high school football coach Ron Gartrell of Shamrock High, 80% of the offense went through Jeff. And although the coach tried to sell him to other college scouts, they believe that a center measuring 6'1" with arms that were too short made him a poor choice as a lineman. Despite numerous schools passing on Jeff Saturday, with some help from his high school coach, he was able to get a scholarship to North Carolina, where, despite these odds, he became a starter during his freshman year and even captain during his junior and senior seasons. But in the draft in April of 1998, with other teammates making it to the NFL, Saturday went undrafted. As noted in Layden's reporting, apparently he had had a terrible pro day. Saturday headed to Eastgate BP, a gas station where he had worked since his sophomore year, and confided in boss James Sperling. The day the pro scouts were in town, Jeff comes walking into the store. I say, how'd it go? Jeff starts getting choked up and says, I guess I'll be pumping frickin' gas and fixing tires for the rest of my life. He's really upset. The scouts told him he was too short and his arms were too short to block those big pass rushers. Tell that to Vince Wilfork. And I told him, shoot man, you can't quit because of what one guy says. Jeff tells me it wasn't one, it was all of them who said that. His college roommate and future NFL defensive tackle, the late great Nate Hopgood-Chittick, went undrafted as well, but was picked up by the Colts. In later interviews, Hopgood-Chittick would describe how Jeff Saturday would basically manhandle the whole team, so when he found himself on the Colts roster, he decided to take a chance on a whim on behalf of a friend. He's noted in the article saying, quote, I had no footing at all with that franchise, so I stood outside Pauling's door in my dirty sweats saying a prayer. I walked in and said, there's a guy selling electrical supplies in Raleigh right now who whipped all those first round draft choices at North Carolina every day. Apparently, Pauling looked back at Hopgood-Chittick and said, I love it, let's get him in here for a workout. In March of '98, it appeared after a terrible pro day that Jeff Saturday had no shot at being in the NFL, and that April would go undrafted. Although he would be picked up by the Ravens, he would be dropped before even playing a game. He was working at an electrical supply store while his draft class played a year in the NFL, because it wasn't until January 7th of '99 that the Colts would pick him up. He would begin at guard that November and eventually go on to snapping the ball to quarterback Peyton Manning for 13 years, who happened to be the first overall pick in the year Jeff Saturday went undrafted. As Wikipedia puts it, Saturday became the anchor of the Colts offensive line, giving up the fewest quarterback sacks among all NFL teams in 04, 05, and 06. Every weekend of Saturday's 13 seasons in Indianapolis mocked the scouts who deemed him unfit for NFL success. The fact is, his skill set is not easily measured at a pro day or the NFL combine. Great balance, efficient footwork. He's got exceptional quickness because he was a wrestler, and he gets lower than the other guy. But just as important is Saturday's work from the neck up. Incredible psychological stability, says Mudd. I believe the really good players don't rise to the occasion, as people like to say. They're just not as adversely affected by the situation. Jeff is very, very seldom out of control under the stress of the moment. I will say the entire article is a really great read. I recommend it. I'll link the other resources as well that contributed to this video, but I definitely recommend reading it. It's a great report. But do all of these qualities make for a great head coach?
Hey, quit calling the plays, all right?
Hey, we gotta run the ball. Six down
Let
there.
me pass blocks,
Can we not run the
We'll run the ball.
Can we run it down there?
Just play
Can we
center.
run it down
Yeah,
there?
Jeff,
Okay, so
we will. All right, when we call pass plays, block.
Saturday and Peyton Manning forged a relationship that more than one teammate compared to a marriage. The two debated strategy, play calls, and blocking assignments in the meeting room, on the practice field, and in games, right up until the moment Saturday launched the ball between his legs. Jeff had equal say with number 18, says former Colts guard Ryan Ligia, who played with Manning and Saturday in Indianapolis from 2004 through 09. And Jeff won his fair share of those battles. After retiring from the NFL in 2013 as a Colt, he joined ESPN as an analyst, and eventually from 2017 to 2020 was the head coach at Hebron Christian Academy, taking the high school football team to the playoffs every year with a state quarterfinals appearance in one of them. To remind you of anyone else with head coaching, high school coaching experience. And so we come to November 7th. Was this the most egregious thing the NFL has ever done? If you're a coach at some level in the league, you might have a good reason to be upset. And maybe some personalities are right to be confused at this hiring. But as the saying goes, any given Saturday, right? Okay, enough. But ultimately, I say, who knows? The number one job as a coach is to win games. And you know what? Maybe Saturday never wins a game or he goes to the Super Bowl. I don't know. But the best coaches have to have a chance to coach, not just the people who are next in line in the hierarchy or the corporate structure, in my opinion. And some people are right in criticizing the move. Having an interesting story, a good personality, a head on your shoulders, being charismatic. I mean, look at Bill Belichick. I'm just kidding. Don't look. You don't need to look at him. He'll just be pouting anyway, are not necessarily qualities enough to be a head coach. But the idea that somehow he hasn't earned it because he didn't spend his 20s or 30s staying up late, designing game plans, sleeping in the office, because he was actually playing in the NFL is silly.
You gotta eat some humble pie to be a coach to begin with. Everybody understands that. You can't be arrogant or whatever. But just think about a natural human who has lived life like this way, and then they go in, now they're drawing up cards for somebody. Just because this coach had the opportunity, you didn't even have the opportunity because you were busy playing in the NFL. You were busy playing in the NFL.
And it's not to say I think all coaching staffs need to be made up of former players, nor do I think to be a great coach you have to have played in the NFL. They're similar, but they're not the same. Ultimately, in my opinion, it goes back to, can your coach lead the organization and win games? And sometimes you'll have playing experience, sometimes you don't necessarily. You have 20 years being the assistant and then rising up to the ranks. But ultimately, in my opinion, the best ideas and plans have to win, not hierarchy. I'm going to go out there and say I think this could be a good thing for the NFL long term. I mean, on Thorm Debate Podcast, shameless plug, we've talked about, and maybe rightly so, complained about the racial disparity between coaches and players. But Jim Irsay and the Colts are not the team nor organization to be complaining about this too. But personally, I just think people are people, and if you're a great coach, you should get a chance to be a great coach. But it just so happens that with Indianapolis and the Colts, the first black coach to win a Super Bowl in the NFL was Tony Dungy in 2007. This is my opinion. I may be wrong about this, but whether in media or sports, just because you put in the hours and play the game of corporate structure or just participate and play by the rules, and it's going to sound tough, outside the written contract, I don't think anyone's owed anything. We kind of forget that the NFL is in this weird, not so weird space as a private business where the owners own the teams with very public interests and public voices, you know? Jim Irsay can do whatever he wants. It's his team. And that can be hard to hear for people in establishment positions who have sacrificed and contributed. And personally, while there are good reasons for people who are in some coaching league to be mad about this, I think many in the media and other places who are upset about this mainly boils down to, in my opinion, because it goes against the norm and the established way of doing things. It goes against the kind of thinking that just does things because we do it this way and have always done it this way. And that can be hard to hear because sometimes people who should deserve the position don't get it. And that sucks. But I think you have to go back to why teams do this way and really think about it. And maybe it's to weed out people who aren't committed enough to a team, or to gauge someone's personality before you put them in charge of an organization's millions of dollars, and then putting them in a position as serious as head coach. I think regardless of status or title, the best ideas and the best people have to be put first.
My role here is for 8 games. When this is over, they will do an exhaustive search and pick whoever their best candidate is to be the head coach of the Colts. If I'm considered, I'd be honored. I have no idea where this thing is going to go, not even a little bit. And I'm not, but I can assure you that's going to be handled. Here's the deal. Everybody talks about I'm completely comfortable in who I am as a man, bro. I know I can lead men. I know the game of football, and I'm passionate about it. I have no fear about, are you as qualified as somebody else? Bro, I spent 14 years in a locker room. I went to the playoffs 12 times. I got 5 dudes in the Hall of Fame that I play with. You don't think I've seen greatness? You don't think I've seen how people prepare, how they coach, how they GM, how they work? I mean, won Super Bowls, been to 2. Like, here's the deal, man. None of us are promised a good job. I may be terrible at this. And after 8 games, I'll say, God bless you. I am no good. I may be really good at it. I got no idea. But I dang sure ain't going to back down. I can tell you that. I mean,
and if that means going around the status quo, or at least having the courage to look at the game and the process in a different way, well, truthfully, I don't know how it'll turn out for the Colts, but I don't think it's that egregious. And after the mixed bag the Colts have had over the past few years, maybe the best idea, at least for the interim, is one way out of left field, or in this case, out of an electrical supply store in Raleigh. I'm intrigued, to say the least. Do I think he'll do a good job? I honestly don't know, but I like when people do things differently. And although I did pick the Colts as an underdog this week against the Raiders, we'll see if this part of the video ages terribly, I don't know, or really well. My upset, I think I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts.
I like that pick.
Over the Raiders.
I like that pick. That's a great pick.
It's too juicy.
Jeff Saturday.
That's a great
Jeff Saturday's
pick.
first one.
If he wins, he'll have to change his name to Jeff Sunday.
Any given Saturday will be. But if you enjoyed the video, found it interesting, please leave a like, subscribe, share, debate in the comments cordially to an extent. Don't be animals, you animals. And be sure to follow the podcast on streaming platforms and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Break.